everybody, welcome to new academic advisor training. Today we are going to cover the basics of academic advising at Kentucky Wesleyan. I am recording this because we have a couple of people who aren't here, and I will send the PowerPoint to everyone after the presentation. I was having trouble getting it to load before, but mostly this is a PowerPoint. It'll take us about 45 minutes, and then you can follow up with me if you have questions from there. So let me share my screen. Can you see it? Give me a thumbs up. Yes, awesome. Okay, so, already. Academic advising at Kentucky Wesleyan is when we engage in a series of intentional interactions with students for the purpose of facilitating student learning outcomes. And our national organization for academic advisors is NACADA. So I share quite a bit of information from them, and they help us shape our program. But wanted you to know this wasn't just coming out of thin air, but this is actual based with the national organization. Responsibilities of an academic advisor, it all starts out by listening, guys. So if you're not a great listener, please start working on that, because just like when you go to the doctor, they say most of the time, if a doctor listens, the patient will tell them what's wrong. It's the same thing with academic advising. If you really listen, you can hear what the student is truly interested in. They will talk to you about what they're good at, what they struggle with, what they dream about, and all of that helps you to be a good academic advisor. If I had to encapsulate academic advising at Kentucky Wesleyan with one word, I would say it's shepherding. That we are with the student on the journey, and sometimes we're just walking along and they're doing their thing, and every once in a while you got to throw them over your shoulders, take them a little bit, okay? So, but mostly really we spend a lot of time in KW 101 teaching students how the process works, and so they really should, by the time they get to a major advisor, understood what their responsibilities are. You as an academic advisor will respond with sensitive and appropriate interventions that help teach the student to accept their responsibilities. About 3 years ago, we dramatically changed the academic advising process at the college. Until then, really students would come in and they would have done no preparation, no research. They would come in to see their academic advisor and say, what should I take next semester? And then the advisor would sit there and help them look at the course list and literally schedule them. Okay, that is a waste of the advisor's time. The time with the advisor is so important, and so we try to teach the student in KW 101 how to do preparation in anticipation of that meeting so that their time with their actual advisor is really meaningful. As an academic advisor, you are helping these students learn important skills. A lot of these are executive function skills, which, because that's prefrontal cortex, many of our students are not old enough to have that part of their brain fully developed. So they still need help learning to organize, learning about making decisions. Do I do this now? Can it wait till later? What's more pressing? And of course, time management, which is the #1 problem that college students and frankly, most adults struggle with. So, but the biggest thing that you are helping to teach them is about critical thinking, okay? Because many times students who've been in P through 12 have not had to do a ton of this in planning their own schedule. If they're a freshman in high school and they're an honors English freshman, they're gonna take honors English sophomore. And they don't have to think about any of this. And so this is something that we very much want to help them continue to strengthen, knowing that this will help them further in their coursework and also in their work world and in their daily life. So as advisors, our beliefs about students, we acknowledge the importance, dignity, potential, and unique nature of each individual served within the academic setting, okay? We're not trying to brainwash them. We're not trying to bring them over to our major. We acknowledge they're an individual. They have their own stuff. So our work is really guided by the belief that they can be responsible for their own behavior, hence this change we made 3 years ago, that they can be successful as a result of their goals and their efforts, not our goals, their goals, that they truly have a desire to learn or they wouldn't be here, that their learning needs really vary according to their individual skills, goals, and experiences, and that students hold their own beliefs and opinions. I continue, this has probably been 20 years, and I wasn't even here then, but I continue to hear a terrible story about a professor who would not let a student change their major. And that is simply not appropriate, and that is not what we are doing. We're trying to help the student figure out what their dream is, what their life goals are, what their interests, aptitudes are, and helping them be successful there, not trying to tie them to a specific major. So I've recently gotten feedback that people do not like this analogy, but too bad. You guys have to sit through it because I haven't thought of a new one. So I love to kayak. And when I lived in California, I used to sea kayak, much like these folks are doing. And there are two distinct roles that people play when they kayak. And so next we want to talk about who plays what role. So let's pretend one of these people is your student and one of these people is you. John will probably take you a little more imagination since they both seem to be women, but play along with me. So what is each person's role? The person in the front is the lookout. They're the one checking to see, is there a log up ahead? Is there an obstacle? Is there a problem? And the person in the front does help propel the craft. They have a paddle, okay, just like the person in the back. But the person in the back provides the most power. They get in there and dig, and most importantly, the person in the back steers, okay? And so, although overwhelmingly faculty initially told me, well, I'm in the back. No, you're not. You are sitting up front. That is your place to be. You are simply the lookout and you're helping steer a little bit. But if the student is not doing the making the decisions and steering and providing most of the power, then we've got this all sideways. Sometimes people say to me, well, I think they should get the best view, so they should get to sit up front. I'm like, you can see just fine from the back. Trust me, trust me, trust me. So here is the advising process for new freshmen. Prior to them matriculating in August, the new student comes to campus for what we call Future Panther Day. And there are 3 of those. And the first one is in April. It's usually a week before graduation. And then there's one in June and one in July. There's not one in May because most of them are graduating, going to prom, busy during May. And so in this meeting, when they come to campus, there's a brief conversation with their advisor, 15 minutes. And the advisor will have already looked at their scores and will already know what level of English they need to go in. And they will have looked at the 4-year plan in the academic bulletin. So they'll know if in their major, faculty want them to take a specific class, in a 100 level class in their major, and they're going to take the freshman seminar. And then really the student just needs to select 2 more classes, general education classes. So again, the advisor will have spent time with the student's admission application. And so they will see, for example, the student is all about historical reenactments, or the student is all about astronomy, or they're interested in something else. So the faculty member can say, hey, Christina, I saw that you're really interested in cycling, and there's a history of cycling class that do you think that's something you'd want to take? Please note there is not actually a history of cycling class, but you're trying to make a personal connection with the student. All students at Wesleyan do have to take a religion class, and there's some other classes they have to take. And so many times for this first conversation, we're really deciding, hey, would you rather take history or religion? And most of the time, I would say 75% of the time, freshmen really don't care. They just want to get into their program and get into their coursework. And so often just giving them a couple of choices about those gen eds works really well. Okay, then they matriculate, and now it's the first semester. And their freshman seminar teacher is also their academic advisor. Okay, so this is the person who met with them in April, June, or July, or sometimes a student needs remote advising. We have a student this semester coming in who has sports commitments all summer and prom and cannot come to campus at any point. We have another student who lives in Florida. It's just too far to come, okay? So we do provide remote advising for those students, okay? So either a Future Panther Day or through remote advising, we'll advise them. So they will have their classes before they come to campus. When they arrive, they start their freshman seminar class, and they have, we spend about 2 weeks in freshman seminar, KW 101, trying to help them learn about what is the college bulletin, what does advising mean, how, you know, all of these things. And so the student then in their first semester meets privately at a scheduled time with their freshman seminar teacher. Okay. And the student, when they come to this first meeting, I encourage faculty to run their meetings this way. You know, you give student the direction, you need to check in the academic bulletin and see what your faculty in your major want you to take. There's a 4-year plan, you need to look at it. And also at the general education check sheet, which shows the 41 hours of gen ed classes you're going to take. Okay. So when the student comes to a meeting, when I'm advising them, I'm teaching freshman seminar this semester, we chit chat for a minute, and then I say, okay, so you've had time to do research and you've been able to look at the bulletin and at the gen eds that you have left to take. What are you thinking? Now, obviously, I've done research too, and I have made notes about what I think they need to take. And the things I will say for sure are things that are in that 4-year plan. What do their faculty in their major want them to take in the spring? We got to make sure to do those. But for gen eds, they have a lot more latitude. And sometimes even as early as the second semester, in some majors, they want them to go ahead and start taking electives in the major. And so we can talk about that. But the whole point, I one time had a student who this semester, it was so funny. He looked kind of confused. And I said, hey, I know what you need to take. That's not the point. The point, remember we talked about in classes, this is your education and you need to plan for it. I'm here to guide you. So tell me based on your research, what you're thinking. Now, I have sometimes, if I've been tight on time, I've had to say to the student, if they're not prepared, you know what, you're not prepared, we're going to have to reschedule, but I don't have any place to reschedule you for a week. So that's a hard lesson, but sometimes the ones that people need to learn. If I have more time, or really the student has made a good faith effort, sometimes I just say, hey, if I'm on Zoom, let's pull up the bulletin, let's look at it together, or, you know, pull out your folder. We give all freshmen a purple folder and transfer students, or I'll say, pull out your folder and let's just talk it through right now. But the point is that even that first semester, the students should be doing the heavy lifting. And in that meeting, KW 101 faculty talk with the student to make sure they know how to actually register themselves. Okay, we do spend time in class on that. So the first time in pre-enrollment, literally the registrar enrolls them. The first semester, we're going to teach them how to do it. By the second semester, they are going into the portal themselves. Okay. So in the second semester meeting, which those have just taken place in the last 6 weeks, the student has mapped out their 4-year plan. We give them a 4-year plan in their purple folder, and they should have mapped that out. Now, I'm not saying every last class. If it says in psychology, we'll say electives 303 or 305. Well, part of that, students probably interested in both classes if they're a psych major, but it may be down to what is being offered the next semester. Is it 303 or 305? Okay, let me take this. So the student has this plan. The KW 101 teacher looks through this with them, and how it's supposed to work, but it didn't very well this semester, was then the major advisor who is taking them into a major reviews those classes, and then the student inputs it alone. The reason this didn't work as well this semester is that we were not able to have our bridging ceremony, which means through an email. You didn't get to meet the new student. It's just through an email. And so it just didn't work as well as it should. Okay, let's talk about gen ed. Woo! Gen ed are 41 hours. They must take KW 101 if they're a new first-time freshman, as defined by the Department of Education. And in these 41 hours, they must take at least one class that's a multicultural course. So let's start out with humanities, general humanities. The requirement is 9 hours. The student must take 3 hours from history and 3 from religion. Sorry, the guy mowing the yard is now mowing right next to my window. So sorry, I hope that's not loud on your end. Most students, when they round out the 9 hours, will simply say, hey, I liked my religion class, I'm just going to take another one. Or I liked my history class, I'm going to take another one. There are 2 100 level religion classes. There are 4 100 level history classes. And then students can also choose to take modern language which we occasionally offer. And usually it's French taught by Christine Salmon, but students could go somewhere else and take it. We also offer philosophy. Students can take a philosophy class, and that would fulfill the requirement. In general humanities, there are a couple of classes that are considered multicultural, and therefore the student can take that and double dip, as we like to say. So there's a class on African American history. They can take that. It's their history and it's their multicultural. Okay, same thing with religions. There's like Abrahamic faiths. That's your religion and that's your multicultural. Modern language, if you take an upper level one, which we rarely offer, the next places though that you can double dip are literature. We have like world literature. That's your literature and your multicultural, okay? And we have some multiculturals that are in aesthetics as well. So we have an art history class. You can double dip there. And we have a couple of music classes that do that as well. So in aesthetics, 6 hours, 3 hours must be in literature and 3 must be in either theater, music, or art. Okay. Now, students will say, it freaks them out about aesthetics because they'll say, I don't want to take theater because I don't like to be up on the stage acting. Great. That's not what this class is. I don't like music because I don't play a musical instrument and I don't sing. Great. That's not what this class is. Or the art. I'm terrible at drawing. No problem. That's not what this class is. These are survey classes that students take just to learn more about the subject. So for example, in music, you're going to learn about the different genres of music. Okay. How is ragtime different from rock and roll? Those kinds of things. And so if you use an example that basic, it will help allay a lot of those fears. So those are the first division that we take, humanities. Next up is social sciences. Everybody takes 6 hours and you must meet the requirement through 2 different disciplines. So you can't come in and say, I want to be a psychology major, so I'm going to take intro to psychology and human development. Those are both gen eds and social sciences. Can't do that. Some of the classes that are offered in social sciences are things like political science, sociology, psychology, geography. There are some education classes, but one of the education class that's part of gen eds actually has a requirement that you pay a bunch of fees and you go into the schools, and often students are like, this was not what I was expecting. So rarely does a non-ed major take a gen ed in education. The other part of social sciences is physical education / health. It's a 3-hour requirement. Everybody takes the same class. Fitness and wellness. People say, I don't want to take fitness and wellness because I don't want to wear my workout clothes and exercise in front of other people. Great. That's not what this class is. Okay. So this is an in the class. You do not have to dress out. You're learning about wellness, and they actually develop a personal wellness plan. Whoops. Next up, natural science and mathematics. This is you guys. Woo! Okay. The requirement is 7 hours. Okay. One class, 3-hour class, must have a laboratory course. That's the 4th hour. And then the other class is a 3-hour class without a lab. And these must be from 2 different disciplines. Okay. So many times students are coming in thinking just biology or chemistry. So we try to expand their mind a little bit and talk to them about, you can take engineering 101. That is a gen ed class. You can take forensic science 101. That's a science class. You can take physical science, the intro there, and it has a lab. You could take physics, and not just physics, but you could take physics and the arts. Okay, so there's some different things that are 100 level that students can take. For students who want to take biology and chemistry and they're not natural science majors, we just simply encourage them to take the concepts class. And we tell them that's the survey class. That's the basic class for biology or chemistry. They're called concepts. And so students who are non-science majors, I got to be honest, guys, often have a lot of anxiety about these classes. And so we really have to do a lot of I actually often get out the description in the bulletin. Okay, let me read this to you. Does this sound like you could do this? Yeah. Okay, great. So, and again, they have to be in 2 different areas. So sometimes that makes students nervous. Like, I'm only good in biology. I'm like, I just don't think that's true. I think, have you ever had an environmental science class? Well, no. Well, I think you could be, let's read the description. Let's see. Lastly, mathematics. The student is required to take 3 hours of mathematics. And we have a variety of classes they can take, from intermediate algebra, college algebra. There's a new class coming on board this semester that Christina Starkey has designed. Christina, do you want to chime in and tell us about that class?
Sure. It's a survey course, and it's one that doesn't have really much background required other than kind of basic math. And it's kind of designed to give students who maybe aren't science majors an opportunity to see some interesting math topics that they otherwise wouldn't see. So rather than just shuffling them into college algebra or shuffling them into like prob and statistics, they'll get to see some really cool real world mathematics, get a little bit of the history, a little bit of the art, a little bit of some of those kind of fun connections, sort of some of the like popular math topics. So I'm really excited about it. I think the goal is to kind of give them a different idea of what math can look like.
Thanks. All right. And then lastly, students take 7 hours of communication skills. They take English 100, which is called Writing Workshop 1, English 102, Writing Workshop 2, and they take a class called Computer Literacy. Computer Literacy is an 8-week course. This student, and it's a 1-hour course. The student goes to class one time, meets the instructor, and then they do the rest of their work remotely by themselves. And it is a pass-fail class. Okay, so that is general education. Any questions at this point? Okay. KDEB 101, as I mentioned, required for all new freshmen, and developmental classes, which are English 110, which is just a lab that goes with English 100. Students test into that. Math 095, which means they're not ready for college level algebra. And History 113, which is actually it's a combination of History 111, which is an American history class, and an accompanying lab that works on literacy and study skills. These are normally based on ACT subscores in math, English, and reading. And we do not call them developmental. Let me just put that out there, okay? So we talk about additional support, extra help, a lab in that class, but Wesleyan has a history of not calling it developmental. So that's what we're doing. Okay, guys, let's talk about upper division classes. So when do students declare a major? They are asked on their admission application what their first intended major is. I am not a huge fan of this, but I inherited this because I think it puts students in a box pretty quickly. Many students are filling this out their junior or early in their senior year of high school. And they may be fixated on one thing this week and something else the next. So occasionally I sit down to advise a student and I'm all excited. So you're going to be a such and such major. And they'll say, oh no, I've changed my mind. Okay, that's fine. We know that a large percentage of students will change their major. And so again, this is part of the reason that we really try to get them in gen eds and not too far into a major their freshman year, because if they change, sometimes those hours just aren't as beneficial. So students can declare on their admission application. They can declare at any point once they're here. During week 13 of the fall semester, we ask them in the freshman seminar class to go ahead and declare if they've changed. We remind them, here's what you said you were going to do. Oh, you've changed your mind? No problem. Let's just fill that out. The reason being, we want to get them with the right major advisor. And at any point, they can go in and declare. They literally go to the registrar's page on the website and they fill it out, and then I get an email that lets me know. We have a bridging ceremony normally in March. Raju always starts us out because he's accounting and we go in alphabetical order. And so what we do is we'll have a bunch of symbols of different majors, and we'll have, I'll do a little intro, and then I will start introducing. These are students who have chosen accounting as their major, and they will be advised by Raju Chenna, Professor Chenna. He'll come up, and then the students one by one will come up, and he will give them a cool button that says what their major is going to be, and they'll wear that on their backpacks. But it just kind of formalizes this step in their vocational life that, wow, I have made a commitment to this. This is exciting. In the second semester, the advising when you're a KW 101 teacher is really, when you're a major advisor is just double checking. So what's going to happen is, John, you're getting 2 new majors in physics, and they're in 2 different freshman seminar classes, and those advisors are simply going to send you, here's what your new advisee wants to take. Any issues? 99% of the time you're going to be like, no, this is right on the money. But occasionally you might say, hey, it would be more beneficial if they took this class first. Okay. So in late March, the advisor is changed in CAMS, and many of our freshman seminar teachers get very sad, and they do not want to let go of their advisees. But unless that student is actually in major, you can't keep them. It just doesn't work. We had a professor one time who was an organic chemist, and he loved teaching the freshman seminar, and he would argue with me, please let this student stay with you. And I'm like, they are a humanities major. They cannot stay with you. But I think that's a real testament to how attached that we get to them in that freshman year. But they are going to be changed in March unless they are actually, sometimes Rachel Pritchard will put the pre-nursing students in with her, and so they do stay with her. But for most of us, most of those students are going on to their major advisor. So major advising, when you are notified about a new advisee, and that can happen in several ways, the registrar's office can let you know, hey, we have a new major in your area. You're going to be their advisor, and they need to be advised now. They may come in December, so you may be advising them before January. They may come in April or May, so you're advising them for the next semester. And again, you'll be notified of several new ones in March who are coming to you from the freshman seminar program. When you are notified that you have a new advisee, you will find their file in your faculty portal. Okay, so you just go there and check it out. And I always, I know that we can do it all electronically, but guys, I still print mine out. Okay, and because I like to write notes on mine, and it's just helpful to me when I get on a call with a student or I'm about to meet. I just like to have a printed copy. You don't have to do that, but it's fine if you do. I ask you to send them a note of welcome. Most of the time they will need advising. Occasionally they're just letting you know they're coming, but definitely a note of welcome, just telling them a little bit about you. Hey, I teach physics and I love it, and I'm so excited somebody else wants to be involved, blah, blah, blah. And you want to let them know the location of your office, okay, and your office hours in case they would want to see you. You need to remind yourself where you are in the kayak. You might be feeling the surge of, I've got the power, but in fact, there you are up front. So what you need to know to be an effective academic advisor in your major is the core requirements of all majors. What does that say? All majors and minors are listed here in the academic bulletin. You need to know where the academic bulletin obviously is. I'm in the academic bulletin daily. I mean, it's kind of my thing. I just keep it open. I'm not expecting you to do this, but it'd probably be smart for you to print it out and keep it handy for your major. And if you have a minor in your area, you need to know your major requirements, and you need to be able to explain why each class is necessary in your major, how it connects, and why some are sequential. Okay, that is hard for me to explain. In the natural sciences, I don't always know why this class feeds into this class. Okay, now in English, I can talk about that all day long, but this is why we put students with an advisor in their major, because I think that you all can best represent what they need to take, when they need to take it, why it's important. And you also, in the academic bulletin, there's the gen ed requirements, but again, the student should have the purple folder with her and it has their gen ed requirements. The purple folder, ha ha ha. So in the purple folder, the gen ed requirements, it's a check sheet. The student should be checking off each semester what they've taken. There's this crazy sense of accomplishment with the check sheet, like, and yes, I did that. So I often say to students, get it out, look at it. Oh my, what have you gotten done? And this and this and this. There's also, you total up the hours on the check sheet. So sometimes that gives students this sense of, I have completed all my social science requirements. Yes, you have. What else do we need to do? In the purple folder, there's a list of course requirements from their current academic bulletin. So we literally glue that in. Now, what if the student changes majors? We send them to the Student Success Center, we'll get a new sheet and glue it in. But that enables them to see what the core requirements are for their classes. And sometimes that helps a student already say, this is not the right major for me, or I'm not, I'm just not interested in some of these topics. We also have an education plan, which is the 4-year plan. You can't see that, but it lets the students map everything out. And then we have a sheet called co-curricular experiences. And this is where we want students to keep track of any leadership they've had in college, athletics, if they've done service work, if they've been involved in campus life, and if they've done internships or practica. Now, some students act like this is no big deal, but it is a really big deal. And we are seeing more and more that although good grades are very much valued by future employers, they want to know, have you had some practical experience? Have you had an internship? Have you ever led people before? Those kinds of things. And so we want students just to keep track semester by semester. So when it's time to really update their resumes, they will have that. Okay. And the purple folder, when we give it to them in KW 101, we tell them, this is your advising roadmap that you will use every semester, so you must have it. So when I tell students, when I have my students coming to see me each semester, I'm like, okay, here's what you need to do to prepare for advising. Get out your purple folder. Check off the gen eds you've taken this last semester. Look at your 4-year plan, look in the bulletin and see the faculty's 4-year plan. Do all this to be ready for that meeting. The registration process, again, student looks at the gen ed check sheet, the 4-year plan, and they then, once they decide what they want to take, they look at the schedule of courses, which is alphabetical by discipline. Okay, students can find that online. And then the student can use the filter function to look for classes by discipline or day or time. Sometimes students struggle. We go through that in KW 101, but sometimes they still kind of struggle. I tell them, if in doubt, go to accounting, scroll down. It takes a little bit longer, but you're going to get there. And it's always hard if they're like, I'm looking for a zoology class. Start at accounting and scroll down. The schedule of courses, this is what it looks like. Again, it starts with accounting. So if they look at, when they look at this, they can see what the course name is, how many credits, when it starts, when it ends, how many people she's taking. Is this, yeah, it's Agnes Church. So the maximum enrollment is 25. 20 people are enrolled right now. There are 5 more seats. You can still get a seat. Tells the instructor, the room number, the days the class is meeting, and what time it's meeting. Okay. And then again, she is teaching the same class, multiple times. She's teaching it seated 2 times. That's A and B. But in the section that says OL01, she's teaching it online. You can take an online class once you've earned 30 units at the college, okay? So if you're only this semester earning the last of those 30, you're not eligible yet. You have to have 30 completed. The course offering, this is what it looks like when you filter. So if you just want to find classes on Tuesday or classes at just 9 a.m., we only have a main campus and we only have undergraduate classes, so that's easy. At the bottom on the right, the departments, so students can look through that. So the student would select CJC if they're looking for a criminal justice class, and that would take them directly to CJC 100A. Again, now they're in alpha order. with the 100 level starting. So for many students, I need gen eds, I'm not sure. Let's just look it up and see if there's a class available. Again, in this class in A right now, there are 47 people enrolled and there are 50 seats. Hooray, you can have a seat. So the advising meeting, you post times when you are available. Student comes to the meeting with a proposed schedule based on their research. They should also have backup plans. Sometimes a class you desperately want doesn't have a seat this semester. Maybe you can take it later and you're going to need to take something else. Your conversation with them is about their current classes. How are those going? You know, you had told me you were excited about starting the first class in our sequence. How is that? Upcoming classes. Hey, last semester you told me you were excited about taking X. Any co-curricular experiences. I heard you got elected to a student government position, or are you still active in the BSU? And then are they getting any relevant experience in your field? Okay, this is becoming more and more and more important. So obviously I would ask you to be aware if there are opportunities in the area for a student to do research, to do an internship, to do a practica. That would be outstanding because you, better than anybody else, is going to know what is available and what would be relevant. You know, a student going to graduate school as opposed to a student who wants to work immediately after college, you're going to be able to best say to them, here's the experience that's going to get you the furthest. Advising time is precious, guys, and your conversation just can't be about scheduling. I do not do scheduling when I meet with students. I very much say, you know how to look in the course list and find the times for these classes, or usually students come to me and they already have the times. They'll say, hey, it's already worked out. Great. But please don't waste your precious time with them. You know, I can help them with scheduling. An upperclassman can help them with scheduling. Anybody can help them with scheduling. Only you can help them often in their specific major. So students, by default, okay, when you get into the portal, when you get into registration, it lets you know that it has something called stop registration that I've highlighted. And by default, the system stops everybody's registration, okay? So this is counterintuitive to me. It seems to me like we should check them when they're ready to register, but in fact, we don't. They're checked because they're not ready to register. Once you have met with the student and you are satisfied with their schedule and you all have it worked out, at that point, for that student, you go in and uncheck so that they are now able to register. If you don't do that, when they get in to register, it will say, your advisor, Shane Armstrong, has blocked you from registering, okay? So this is a really important part. If you're doing back-to-back meetings, I often, if I have a day where I'm, 4 or 5 people, I go in the evening and unblock. But if you're advising them during the time when they actually can register, you got to remember to go right in. I've had students I've advised and they registered 5 minutes later, so I just stop everything and go there. So the portal is open for different classes at different times. That makes sense. And so I would ask you to advise by the highest class level first. What works best is if you do a paper and pen or a Google Doc sign up. So the paper and pen you can do on your door if you're more comfortable with that. This semester I did a Google Doc and I indicated students who have 30 to 60 hours can sign up here. Students who have, other ways. You want to clearly communicate with the student when you will have advising appointments, how to sign up for the appointment, and how they need to prepare for the appointment. So that's as simple as an email or a text that you send to your whole crew. And again, the freshman portal is open last, and it's open for a longer period of time because they sometimes need more help. So this is a sample of when students would register. Would open on the 22nd for people who have 90 units or above, and then it closes 3 days later, and then we open it up for the next group of students. So again, for you guys are not right now advising freshmen, so you're meeting with the student, upperclassmen, you're approving their choices and unchecking the box to allow them to register. Okay. Questions?
You already answered my biggest question about double dipping on the multicultural courses, so that was the
Okay.
biggest thing that seemed ambiguous.
Well, and one of the things, you know, some students are like, I don't understand how that's double dipping. I'm like, okay, well, instead of taking American history, you're taking African American history, or you're taking not literature in the US, you're taking world literature. Often at that point, if you look up the classes, they're like, oh, I get why that's multicultural.
And they still have to take 41 hours though, total, right?
Yes.
For the gen ed.
All right, John, I know you have class. As I said, I will send you a copy of my PowerPoint. I'm sorry, I haven't looked. Every time I tried to attach it to your email, it kept opening for me. I'm like, yes, I know I have it. I want to send it to someone. So hopefully when I get out of all of this, it'll let me do this. And as you guys, I mean, what I think makes advising a little challenging is that you don't do it every day. So it's easy to kind of forget things. So don't feel weird if you need to reach out. I can't remember this, you know, go over this again. That happens all the time. And I'm absolutely glad to help. The main thing I'm looking for you all is to be, you know, an expert in your field and in what the bulletin says your students need to take. Because that, I mean, I can advise anybody through any major, but I am just not as good at it as somebody who actually is in that area, you know, and who can talk to them about, hey, when I went to grad school, when I had my first job, when I did an internship, and you have that experience that is unique, and that's really important to students. All right, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks so much. I also
Bye.
now know I wasn't holding my one advisee too accountable for his own actions, so that makes me feel good too.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Bye.